So here is the formula for the quadratic formula. And when you guys do this, keep in mind that quadratic equations have none, one, or two real solutions. So we're going to do examples that have no solutions, that have one solution, or two real solutions. When we do the quadratic formula, your equation has to be in this order, or you can't do the quadratic formula. It will not work. It will be wrong. So I'm going to look at my equation, x squared plus 3x equals 5. Is that in this order?
No.
No. How do we make it? Subtract 5 from both sides. So now we have x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Is that in the correct order?
Yes.
So for fun, I say fun, we're going to sing the formula. I know it's written on your paper, but the more you sing it, it's not going to always be written on your paper. The more you sing it, you're going to remember it. So I'm going to be way louder than you. Ready? This is just the formula. Ready? Okay.
Don't you worry.
Alrighty. Let's start it. X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Excellent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in our values for a, b, and c. And I don't always write these down, but I'm going to write it down this time. A is what value? What number is in front of x squared? 1. B is 3, and C is negative 5. So we're going to plug those into the quadratic formula. So we're going to have x equals. Then we do the opposite of B. Negative 3. Plus or minus square root. Now we do B squared, which is 9. Now we do minus, and I like to open a parenthesis here. And I like to write 4 times my A value times my C value. Then I like to close parentheses and put all over 2 times A. Which is just 2. And you could just write 2, but for notes, since this is being recorded, I'm putting 2 times 1, just in case anybody's watching it hasn't seen this yet. Okay, now what we do is we simplify. So we go x equals negative 3 plus or minus square root. Inside I now have 9 plus 20. If you have your addition or your subtraction wrong on the inside, you're going to get the answer wrong. So you have to be on top of your adding and subtracting skill. One more step. Well, not really, but kind of. X equals negative 3 plus or minus square root 29 all over 2. So we're going to ask ourselves for simplification purposes, does 29 have a perfect square that can be pulled out?
No.
No. So does this have answers?
No. Yes. Come on, Brandon.
How many answers does this have?
So,
There's 2 answers. And they're both written, they are both written right here. I'm going to show you other ways of writing them that will help you on other questions. I would actually leave both of my answers written like this. That's how I would do it. But what I'm showing you right now is going to help you on other questions. So please play along. Other ways that you could write these 2 answers. You could write it as negative 3 over 2 plus or minus square root of 29 over 2. How did I get that? I just distributed the 2. It's dividing the whole thing, so I'm dividing each piece of it. That would be one way of doing it. You could write it as negative 1.5 plus or minus square root of 29 over 2. That doesn't really make that question any better to write it that way. I'm just telling you, you can do that. So I've given you 3 different ways we could write this. These are exact answers. These are exact answers. If I wanted approximate answers, do you guys remember what these x's are on the graph? What are these on the graph? They're the x-intercepts. So do you know how to graph -3/2 plus or minus square root of 29 over 2?
I'm sure my calculator does.
Yeah, I'm sure your calculator does too, but how would you have to plot it by hand? Right, so what we need to do is we need to figure approximate answers, and we are going to use our calculator. We're going to use the calculation screen. So pull out your calculator.
You see.
Okay, and then on the calculator, we're going to do, we're going to type in the solutions. We're going to type them in so we can find our approximate decimal. If I were to type in, you cannot type in plus and minus at the same time. Remember, there's 2 answers. One is a plus, one is a minus. I can't type them in at the same time. So how can we type in the plus version?
Plus.
No, what am I going to type in?
Oh.
So you're trying that one, -1.5 plus.
Well, it's kind of a pain in the butt for the fraction.
Nah, I'll go over that too. Plus. Okay, so when you do the square root of 29 and you divide it by 2, you need to make sure that that divide by 2 is outside of the square root of 29 or it will be wrong. Another way that you could do this, you can get the fraction. If you have the newer calculators and you hit alpha y equals, and then you have your fraction there. Alpha y equals, and then I type in my -3 plus square root 29. And then I put it over 2. That'll be another way that we could type it in our calculator. So that is the approximate decimal for one of the answers. I'm going to round it to 3 decimal places. So what are we going to write on our paper? Approximately 1.193. Right, approximately. But there's 2 answers. That's one of them. That's the positive version, by the way.
That should be the second one.
Yeah, that would be the second one. So we go back to the calculator and helpful little trick on the calculator to get the second one. I don't want to have to retype it in. So that works on some calculators. If you hit up, not all the calculators works on. So if you have the older ones, you hit second enter, and it just pops up again. And you can just use your arrow to go on top of the plus sign and just hit minus when you're sitting on top of the plus sign. Just hit minus and hit enter. So you can just change what's there. And we get our other answer, -4.193. So if you were plotting that on a graph, you would have approximate x-intercept. Good stuff? Okay, we're going to do the student practice number 1. I'm going to give you a moment to start doing it on your own, then I'm going to pop in and finish it with you. Student practice number 1.
All right, guys, let's sing it.
Is it in the right form to start?
Yes.
Got to be in the right order to start. So you notice your b value currently is -6. So when we do the formula and we say x equals opposite b, what's the opposite?
6.
It would be a positive 7. Then we do plus or minus square root b squared, 36, minus 4 times 1 times 4, all over 2 times 1. Great. So we simplify it, we get 6 plus or minus square root of 20 over 2. Now I ask myself, the square root of 20, is that a perfect square?
But you can,
It is not a perfect square,
or,
but you can pull out a perfect square. 4 radical 5, right? Radical 4, radical 5.
oh,
So now I have 6 plus or minus 2 radical 5 all over 2. And this is where I told you that you may want to write it in a different form other than just leaving it like this. Because I'm noticing if I take that 2 and I distribute it to both terms on top, 6 over 2 plus or minus 2 radical 5 over 2, what happens to the 2 in both cases? So we have 3 plus or minus radical 5 for our final answer. You will not be doing the approximate values for your assignment. You'll be doing the exact values. So I'm not going to type it in my calculator. I was just showing you how to do it for future reference. Okay? All right, we're going to go to the example number 2. We're not going to finish the rest of the student examples right now. We're going to go to example 2. And this one says solve 25x squared minus 8x equals 12x minus 4. Is that in the right order?
no.
No. So we got to make it in the right order. Let's subtract the 12x squared to the other side. The 12x, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Subtract that 12x. Also, add the 4. $25x squared minus 20x plus 4 equals 0. Should we sing our song now?
No.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Alright, so x equals opposite b, which is opposite b?
20.
Plus or minus square root b squared is what?
400.
B squared minus
Plus or minus. Oh, no.
minus 4ac
400.
all over 2a. I just kind of plugged it in, plugged in the a, b, and c while I was thinking. Now I know I'm calculating these quickly, but you can calculate on your own time. We're really just going through the motion of doing the quadratic formula over and over again. I now have 20 plus or minus square root. When I calculate this, I get 0. 400 minus 400, that's what ends up happening in there, over 50.
0.
What is the square root of 0?
0.
Okay, so if I have the square root of 0, if I have the square root of 0, that's plus or minus nothing. Square root of 0 is 0. Yes. No, it's-
negative times negative is positive negative.
Do you have a negative 400 here? So that's 400, and then subtract, and then that's 400. Okay. So what I end up having is x equals 20 over 50. Because if I add or subtract square root of 0, nothing changes. This is just 0. And then 20 over 50 does reduce
2 over 5.
to 2/5. And that would be my only answer. We have one answer. Remember, sometimes we can have one answer. Okay, look at example number 4. Example number 4 is solve using the quadratic formula, but I'm going to give you some advice. Huh? Oh, my bad. Example 3. Sorry, I don't know why I thought it was 4.
Oh my.
Look at example 3. Here's my advice. Ready for this? You don't have to take it, but then I can't guarantee that you're going to get it right when you do your homework. So this is some advice for you. We have to put this into the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We have to put it in that form. I would suggest that keep a positive. So you have the choice of how you make this into the correct form. You have the choice because you're going to either move the 13 over or you're going to move over the x squared and the 4x. You just have to make one side 0. However you do it, I would suggest that this number in front of x squared become positive. That's just my suggestion because of what could happen in the future. We can talk about if it does happen. So I'm going to move the x squared over by adding x squared to both sides, and then I'm also going to subtract 4x from both sides. And I will end up with 0 equals x squared minus 4x plus 13. Is it okay that my 0 is on that side? Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted my x squared to have a positive number. Then we do our formula. So x equals opposite b. Here's b. What's opposite?
4.
4 plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's simplify. Using my order of operations, I'm going to simplify. And what do I get? Negative 36. Thank you.
No, this is a 9.
This is, but we can still represent the answers using imaginary numbers. So on the graph, this would have no x-intercepts because of that negative underneath the square root. Uh-oh. I should probably plug that in. But we can still represent the answer with imaginary numbers. So what is the square root of negative 36? What is it?
6.
Yeah. Would this be one where you think I should divide both terms by 2, or should I just leave it the way it is?
Leave it. 2 plus or minus 6i over 2.
Does 2 divide into both terms? Yeah, so I'm going to do that. Whoop, I don't want my squigglies yet. I'm going to get x equals 4 over 2 plus or minus 6i over 2. And then I'm going to reduce it. 2 plus or minus 3i. So I don't know how picky the online assignment is going to be about if you could leave your answer here or if you need to reduce it. I don't know. You guys are going to have to find that out for me and let me know. But we have an assignment online, so you're going to go ahead and grab your computers and start now while you're in class. Yep.
On a test, would you be so picky if we...
Yeah, I want you to reduce it.
Okay.
Yeah.